Welcome to Four Scores, a new podcast series hosted by Variety's John Burlingame. Four Scores will take listeners on a magical journey into the world of film and television composers. Listen wherever you hear your favorite podcasts.
TV party tonight! TV party tonight!
Oh, we got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews.
Don't want to talk about anything else.
We don't want to know.
We're dedicated to our favorite shows!
Oh, my circuit! Everybody loves Hypnotoad! Scary Dog! Dancing at Blurnsville!
Futurama!
Good evening. This is the Rattlegion Broadcasting Network premiere podcast TV party tonight. I'm your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified. And tonight, our favorite show is Krypton, Season 2, brought to you by the good people at the SyFy Network, Phantom 4 Films, DC Entertainment, Warner Horizon Television, and David S. Goyer. Oh, Boyer. Joining me. Remember those commercials, Jesse? Goya. Oh, Boya.
Nope.
You
What is
don't,
Goya?
you don't know Goya?
No, I do not. What is it?
Like canned Hispanic food, like beans and shit.
Oh, can't say I have.
You Google it. Goya. Oh, Boya.
Goya, oh boya.
So we are talking about Krypton Season 2. If you don't know where Krypton is, it's it's the planet that Superman came from, but in this particular case, it is a prequel series. It's been canceled after its second season, which introduced Lobo to the series. It's a prequel. It's about the life of Superman's grandfather and his great-great-granddad and all the events that took place before the destruction of Krypton. Zod, General Zod, goes back in time. That happened in the first season, and by the end of it, they had defeated Brainiac by shoving him into the Phantom Zone, which he then sucked, the character's name is Seg-El, Superman's grandfather, into the Phantom Zone with him, which left Zod in charge of Krypton, and he told everyone to kneel. Kneel
Yes,
before
he did.
Zod.
Yes,
because
he
if
did.
nobody understands anything about this character, they know he likes when people kneel.
Kneel before Zod.
Yep, that's it. That's his whole character arc. Kneel before Zod.
Who shall I get to kneel today?
So Season 2 picks up where Season 1 more or less left off. There's a rebellion of Kryptonite folk.
Kryptonians.
Yeah, that's
I
a better
got you
word.
back.
Thank you. There's a rebellion of Kryptonians that are opposed to Zod's militaristic rule. He is, we believe, joined by his daughter, who is Seg-El's hot flame, his girlfriend. They are
Lyta.
Lyta,
Talking
yes.
about Lyta? Yep.
Lyta on fire. They are.
Nice.
They are running Krypton together, and they are running it with an iron fist. Seg-El's grandfather is part of the is leading the rebellion. Lyta's mother is off hiding somewhere, and I believe Adam Strange had left for a while when he came back just as Seg-El was being sent to the sucked into the Phantom Zone.
Yeah, he traveled back home and then found that things were a little bit different there on planet Earth. Since he had been there, Zod had taken over. So I think he traveled into the future, into his own back to Earth, and yeah, bad things were happening. So he knew that he had to fix whatever it was, and I think that's why he came back.
Yes. So the show, season 2 premiered on June 12th, and then it ended this past August, and it just wasn't keeping up in the ratings, so Season 3 got canceled. But apparently that was a shock to everyone involved with this because they had all kinds of plans for Season 3.
Oh. Well, it's kind of disheartening. This is a series that really a lot of people, I think, just were number one, it's on SyFy, and anymore, what you attribute to SyFy is Sharknado, Zombie Tidal Wave, upcoming here on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network. Correct?
Correct.
That's right. And so it's not the greatest network. It doesn't seem to have as much clout as it's used to. But there are some great series on that network, and I think this was one of them. And I'm really surprised that, I don't know. I went into season one with oh geez, here we go. This was before Pennyworth. I didn't know how bad it could potentially get. I figured I figured Krypton would probably be the worst of the DC TV shows on SyFy, but I was really impressed with season one, and I think the big moments, or the big parts for me that made me really enjoy season one was Zod. We kind of teased Doomsday. Didn't we get was there a teaser at the end of season one? Or I might be confusing that with Titans. One of them had Crypto. That was Titans. I'm getting it confused. Never mind me. I'm over here doing a podcast about Krypton. I'm ready to get my Krypton. I didn't get to get that joke in, by the way. I wanted to get my Krypton. So anyway, yeah, I like
Boy, Jesse's born a rambling man.
It's funny. I enjoyed season one, and I'm really sad season two. Season two was the final season. There was my gosh, we have got some stuff to talk about here. Some of the bright spots here in this season. Number one, Lobo, but we're going to get to that. So
here's let me just wrap this up, and then we can actually talk about the season, because we more or less. I mean, look, it's not my favorite one. I don't think Krypton's better than Swamp Thing or Doom Patrol by far. It's probably better than Titans.
I would say, yeah. Okay, I'll agree with you there.
It's probably about the same these days as Arrow, but in my opinion, it's not better than The Flash, Supergirl, or Legends of Tomorrow. I think those are all better shows. So it's kind of in the middle to not quite the bottom, but it's kind of the top half of the bottom. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a tough bit of subject matter. This takes place well back into the past, and you have a lot of characters that really aren't on the forefront of a lot of fans' minds. Superman's grandfather. So you got to mix in, sprinkle. You got to sprinkle a little bit of that familiarity in there. So that's where Adam Strange comes in, and other things like that. So I understand its struggle against other DC TV series, just because there's a lot of unknown to this. And there is definitely a lot of sci-fi elements to this, because it takes place out in space, and we've got space.
Thank you.
We have a lot of so we got a lot of kind of like science fiction based, well back into some ancient civilization that's far more advanced than what we see right now. So there's a lot of stuff you got to wrap your head around to try and enjoy it. But once you get past those hurdles, I think there's some great storytelling going on throughout this series.
I don't know what other sci-fi series like Killjoys was one they were advertising a lot of when I was watching Krypton. I don't know what the ratings for the other series, comparatively speaking. I do know that this never recovered from the pilot. The pilot had 1.32 million U.S. viewers. The next episode, 1.7, then 95, 87, 72, 60. Like, people were dropping off this series fast.
Why?
And that's the first season.
Man,
53, 60. It finished season 10 with a episode 10 with a 0.56. So in one season, in 10 episodes, it drops from a 1.32 to more than half of that, 0.56. Okay, and even less people saw the season premiere for season 2, and it's continued to drop. It kind of hovers between 45 and 50 between 0.45 and 0.5 for the first couple of episodes. And then again, we start dropping a little bit, and now we're hovering between 30.35 and 0.4, and then by the end of the season, we're down to 0.29 and 0.35.
What What time slot was this in?
I want to say this was like 9 or 10 o'clock at night.
On what day?
Oh, I don't know. I DVR'd the whole thing and then binged it.
Oh, okay. I mean, that's kind of how most everybody does things anymore. But I was just curious as to what it was going up against. If there was other things on other networks that were giving it some competition. But either way, I mean, yeah, man, that's the numbers speak for themselves. If maybe I'm the outlier that actually enjoyed this particular show. I don't know.
I mean, look, here's what I was getting at. There's good in this show, and there were some. We'll talk about one of the highlights, which was Lobo, in the second season. The guy playing Lobo is freaking hilarious. But here's the thing: I think people went into it thinking it was going to be one thing, and what they got was a very dreary-looking, melodramatic science fiction show.
Yeah, we needed some life from that first season. Even though I enjoyed the first season, it like took place in a cave most of the time. You know,
it's the dullest fucking sets. Krypton is the worst.
Yeah, it's kind of monotone. You know, it's not. Yeah. It's not good. And I think they tried to spice it up in season 2 because we got different sets.
Yeah, they sent Segel and Brainiac to Endor. Giant fucking California redwoods. I don't know if I don't know where they shot it, but it's the first few episodes where Segel finally gets. He doesn't last long in the Phantom Zone. He's there for like not even a full episode. And and I forget how, but him and Brainiac figure out how to get out of the Phantom Zone, and they end up on Kalu, which is Brainiac's homeworld. Which is, again, and I think this is part of the problem, they took way too many liberties with this iteration of Superman's lore. Now, I'm not one of these people who's like, if it's not like the comic book, and fuck this place. You know, I'm not one of those people, but I will tell you that I'm sure a lot of people were like, you know, they looked at Zod, they looked at Brainiac, and this was so different from the accepted Kryptonian lore, which is not a real thing, by the way. It's a comic book. This is all fiction. I feel like I need to remind people of that. Krypton, not real. Superman, not real. And so the lore can kind of be what people want it to be. But by the same token, as much as I'm kind of making fun of that, people don't necessarily have to watch it then. You know, as we say all the time, there's this ongoing struggle between, people wanting something original and the rest of the world wanting what's comfortable. Mm-hmm. You know, they want what they're used to, they want what they like, and they can't get enough of what they like. I like ice cream. I'm going to eat ice cream 3 meals a day, and for dessert.
It's going to get a little stale after a while.
Not to some people, they'll continue to eat ice cream. You're like, don't you need some? Yeah, sure. I'll just change the flavor of ice cream, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So to the ice cream eaters, this was very much a different dish. And they were like, nope, I just want ice cream, the same ice cream I've had since I've been eating ice cream as a child.
Not having it. I went into this, I'm a comic book guy. You know, we do the Source Material podcast here on the network. And
the Unspoken Issues.
That's right. Unspoken Issues is right here on the Radulich Broadcasting Network as well. I don't know a tremendous amount of the history of Superman. I mean, I know all the big beats, but, you know, that didn't bother me watching this. I wasn't going into this saying, okay, well, here's Brainiac. This is way early for Brainiac. What the hell? I just thought, well, you know, the Kryptonians had a run-in with Brainiac in the past. Okay, that's a neat way of taking it. We got Lobo in this show. I could almost take that as well. I was like, well, you know, he's probably been around for a while, and he's probably had a run-in at some point with Krypton. That didn't bother me. And Zod, I guess the big thing, Zod coming back in time and trying to rule Krypton. You know, not that big of a deal. Maybe it's the fact that I'm not a huge Superman fan. I'm not a big, a person that is just wrapped up in the history of this character, a very storied history, one of the most popular comic book characters in the world. But that they could take as many liberties as they wanted, because this may be a case of where I appreciated the storytelling more than I did the sticking to the source material, if you will.
Mm-hmm. One more time, I just want to be very clear about this. I know for me, I was willing to accept kind of whatever story they wanted to tell. The problems I had with the first season of Krypton, which we talked about, it's in the archives, you can go back and check it out, was the lack of a color palette. Everything is gray and dull and dark. There's a couple of moments where you go inside Kandor, which is like, I guess, the main city in Krypton, which in Superman lore, Brainiac comes and takes, shrinks Kandor down and puts it on his ship. So I don't know.
City of Kandor.
Yeah, right. And that's what they're preventing in season 1 is Brainiac Brainiac sort of pulling the wool over everyone's eyes by pretending to be this other entity, and the plot is that once he's done whatever it is he needs to do, he's going to shrink Kandor down, and so it's a kind of a race against time to stop that from happening. But that then leaves this huge vacuum open for Zod, who then takes over Krypton. Now they have a whole set of new problems, and that's where season 2 takes place. Plus, they have Doomsday running around. That becomes a plot element. And then, like I said, there's still Lobo out there, who has a very heavy presence in the beginning and then comes back at the end. But anyway, I just think as even a casual viewer, if you have no expectations and you just want to see a good show, this was too melodramatic even for a superhero TV show. Like, and if you want melodrama, check out The Flash, check out Arrow. But this is even more melodramatic than those in tenor. And then, like I said, it's very dull to look at. And I feel like season 1 kind of meandered for 10 episodes. Like, even 10 episodes, I never felt like they had enough going on to keep it interesting. And season 2 kind of runs in circles. So we can shift over and start talking about season 2 specifically. The good things about it, which is as good a place as any to start, is at least in the beginning, they have several problems right off the bat. Zod's in charge, there's a rebellion, Zod's trying to kill the rebellion, and there's a space elevator. I don't know how the physics of that works.
Yeah, that kind of had me going. I was like,
does the planet not rotate at all? I don't understand this.
I don't think I have no idea. The only thing I could think of is, like, just imagine a large tube, but not connected to the ground. Okay, so maybe they stay in geosynchronous orbit. Yeah, that's right. I said that. They stay in orbit with each other, and you just have to thread that thing in between, and maybe the planet rotates, but so long as it's in the sky, you could just you just shoot up, maybe fly up to that elevator,
it's
get in
moving,
the elevator.
Like the tube itself is moving with the planet.
Yes, not connected to the planet, kind of like a tube in between, like the atmospheres of the planet. And then
maybe.
Trust me, I thought about it too.
When they introduced the space elevator, I almost was like, boy, am I glad we're doing a podcast on this, because otherwise, nope, I'm done. This fucking high-tech fucking society that can, that does all the things it can do, including space travel, but they don't have a space travel to the moon. They use an elevator. Nope. Yeah. I'm checked out.
Well, I got to thinking about that too, because that's where the whole Wegthor thing comes in. There's apparently some type of element down there on this other planet that this space elevator goes to. So you think of Krypton, and then the tube, and then there's Wegthor, I believe. And there is an element on Wegthor that allows them to travel through space. So they have to mine that and then bring it back to Krypton. And that's why the rebels go down there and are like, oh, hey, you know what? You want to conquer the universe, or you want to conquer other worlds? Well, you got to come through us first. And, hey, we've got control of all your Supremium, or whatever the hell it's called. They had a name for it. But, yeah, so I was like, why can't people just fucking fly, get in a spaceship and fly to the planet?
Yeah,
And I was like, okay, well, that's probably why, because it's a limited resource, and you have to go down there and mine it. That's my only explanation for that.
So yeah, we pick up with let's kind of break this down. We pick up with Seg-El in the Phantom Zone, and it's kind of hippy dippy, trippy, Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moonish. He doesn't last very long. Do you remember the details on how him and Brainiac figured out how to get out of the Phantom Zone and end up on Kalu?
Brainiac tricks him, and he's like got this thing around his neck. Or no, hold on, I can't remember how he gets this thing, but he has this thing that, whether he's got it in a necklace or in his back pocket, but Seg has this thing that ends up having the power of a yellow sun in it, and
conveniently.
Brainiac is posing as, I can't remember if he's posing as a grandfather or somebody, and says, hey, why don't you use that, and you could get out of here, you just got to cut a hole in space-time, or whatever the heck he had to do. And so he grabs that thing and uses it. He becomes really, I assume, like really powerful while he's using that thing, cuts the thing open, turns around, and his grandfather, whoever it was, turned into Brainiac. So he tricks him into getting both him and Brainiac out of there. That's how they get out, and then of course they wake up on what was it, Kalu?
Kalu.
It's a good drink.
Aruba, Kalua, ooh,
I want to take you to the Vita.
Kalua.
Come on, pretty mama. Come
on, pretty Brainiac.
Oh, he's not pretty.
Key Largo, Kryptonian. Sorry.
We're here all night, folks. Lucky for you.
All right, so yeah, they wake up on Kalu. So Brainiac, the super crazy, hyper cyborg computer being, lives on Endor with giant redwoods.
Yeah.
I don't understand this show.
This is the Borg, ladies and gentlemen. He let this place flourish.
So Seg-El and Brainiac are traipsing about this beautiful, scenic forest. And Brainiac's like, yeah, I at the moment I need you, and when I don't need you anymore, I'll be done with you, and that's that. And Seg-El's like, why am I doing this? And he ends up thinking that he killed Brainiac when Adam Strange finds him, and Adam Strange uses his Zeta beam to travel to Kalu. He figures out that Brainiac, in a last-ditch effort to preserve himself, joined on a microscopic level with Seg-El. And so the first couple of episodes kind of deal with Seg-El fighting off Brainiac's influence and Brainiac trying to take over Seg-El's entire body and mind. Mm-hmm. But along came Lobo. Boop, 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 boop. Along came Lobo.
Wasn't it?
Australia talking Lobo.
I just figured out he's not Australian. He's Irish.
Oh, is he?
Yes,
Okay.
Irish actor Emmett Scanlon.
I'd have bet money. I kept waiting for him to be like, that's not a knife. This is a knife.
Fargan bastard.
So, yes, Lobo is played by Paul Hogan. That's a Crocodile Dundee joke, kids. Look it up.
Yes, sir. 1980s casting right here.
That's right. Anyway, Lobo is the best part of season 2. And I'm not just saying that as a Lobo fan, by the way. Hey, Jesse, I swell up like this.
I know that reference.
But he's so funny, and I have to say, of all the things that the show takes way too seriously and way melodramatically to the point that I got bored a lot, yep. Lobo, they nailed, I feel like, pitch perfect.
Yeah. I can't think. I know that our good buddy of the network, Pat Mullen, Toxic Masculinity himself, he shared with me a video. It was I want to say it was a college project or something of a guy who, it was just like a short, I think 20 or 30 minute video, Lobo versus Santa Claus. Mm-hmm. And the guy in that portrayed him very well. For the life of me, I don't know of any other live action portrayals of Lobo. There may be some, but I can't think of any off the top of my head.
He's been in a couple of the animated shows, but I've never seen anything live action.
You mentioned the animated stuff. So I was really worried what the portrayal of Lobo was going to be, because he's so he's over the top, he's sarcastic, he's crazy, he's supposed to be a psychopath. So what are we going to get here? It's going to take somebody with a lot of chops.
He's Wolverine without all the charm.
He's got to have the actor's got to have a lot of chops to pull this off, and he's got to be written well. And if he isn't written well, this series can go kissing ass, because Lobo was one of the things I was really excited to see, and this Emmett Scanlon did a absolute phenomenal job. People kept calling him Bird Chest. Did you have a problem with the way this guy was built?
No, it's not like he's Roman Reigns.
Okay. All right. Well, a lot of people were like calling him the bird-chested Lobo. This is other stuff I'd heard online or on podcasts, and I was like, I wasn't too taken aback by how small he was. I mean, he looked cut enough. And
I was going to say, Lobo's never been drawn as like a uked-up character. I mean, maybe down the line he had more musculature, but then again, didn't everybody at some point in the 90s?
Now, when you get to the New 52 Lobo, then you're really... He was basically reduced to like emo teenager.
Yeah,
so,
I've seen
this
those at Ollie's.
This is definitely better than that version.
There are some iterations of Lobo where he looks like Ivan Putski, but look it up, kids. But I didn't think they did a bad job. I thought his costuming was good. Like, look, first of all, he has the world's stupidest haircut in the Legion comics, which we talked about on our DC First Lobo Superman show, where I got sidetracked by his appearance in Legion, and it looks like he's got Darth Vader's fucking helmet around his head.
I don't understand, man. The stupidest thing I've ever seen.
So, like, you obviously, like, you don't, as a costumer and a hairdresser, you wouldn't even try for that. So instead, they gave him dreadlock, and he looked great.
Yeah, he looked fine. He had his signature hook chain weapon, whatever that's called. He definitely had the wit and just the insanity about him. He did a great job. His interaction with when they first find Seg and Adam, and he tells him, "Hey, I'm looking for Brainiac," and at this point in time, we start to find out that Seg has Brainiac inside him. Oh my gosh, I laughed so hard.
Oh yeah. So if you haven't seen it and you're listening to this just because you would like to hear us talk about TV shows, but you haven't actually seen Krypton yet, when Lobo figures out that that Brainiac is in, I couldn't even make this joke. It's so bad. He starts doing the old finger in the, he makes a circle with one hand and he sticks his finger through it like he's getting fucked in the ass, ladies and gentlemen. In the ass.
So at the end of episode 2, I send you a message. I'm like, this series needed Lobo.
Yeah.
It needed Lobo. And the unfortunate fact is that episode 2 is I think it's episode 2. No, it's episode 3. Episode 3 is where we leave him.
Yep.
Lobo. And I was like, please, let him fucking join.
But can we please talk about that just for a second? Because the whole thing is they got to get Brainiac out of Seg before they lose Seg altogether, and he just gets overcome by Brainiac and basically becomes Brainiac. So they find this machine that will, used appropriately, will pull Brainiac out of him. And that'll give Lobo the opportunity to kill Brainiac, this time mind, body, and soul. At least that's the theory.
Instead of focusing on killing Seg and Adam.
Yeah, exactly. So the whole setup, the scene is, the stage is set up like there's this white room with like a shield, and Lobo's trapped outside of it. And so Seg is hooked up to this machine. He's out of commission. And so it's just Adam who's kind of standing over him, and Lobo's trying to get in. And basically, Adam's like, nah, we're protected by a shield. And Lobo's like, just sticks his hand in, and his hand gets cut off.
Yep.
And Adam's just like, See, dummy, you can't get in. And so apparently Lobo has like Deadpool powers.
Biofusion. This is the biofusion power we covered on the source material podcast.
So this is hilarious, right? So his arm is now inside this room, the shield, and then Lobo gives Adam Strange this look, and Adam has this moment of utter terror, and then Lobo blows his fucking head off.
Now, the greatest was the 2 seconds before that, where he like looks at him and he nods and he's kind of like nodding over to his other arm, and Adam Strange is like, "What the fuck?" And he looks over at his other arm, and his arm's laying on the ground. It proceeds to flip him off, and then he turns around, and then Lobo blows his own brains out, and you're like, "What the fuck just happened?" Oh, so great.
So then from the arm, Lobo starts to grow out. It's so good.
Not immediately. It's not like, 2 seconds he's back. No, he's got to slowly grow from the head down.
And so Adam has now this like the world's worst like Sands of Time moment, where he's got to get Seg out of here. Meanwhile, Lobo is growing and taunting him. Oh. It's so good. But they eventually get Brainiac out of Seg, and they Zeta beam out of there, and they leave Lobo in the room beneath, in the force field with Brainiac.
Yeah, and we already assume Brainiac's dead at that point.
The show kind of goes off a cliff after this. Because now
there's still some parts. I mean, we'll talk about it, but I think there's still some good cliffhangery stuff here.
A lot of it deals with the rebels and Zod's army. Zod's major plan here to get rid of the rebels and to what he's trying to do, his big plan is that and this is the problem that Adam Strange ran into, because in the future, Zod will conquer Earth. So back to the present that the show takes place in, Zod is starting to build up his spacefaring colonial army. And that's part of what the rebels are fighting against, is they don't want him to succeed in being a spacefaring colonial terror. So they're based on this moon, and they're fighting him from there. Zod is using like a mind wipe machine to, so that anyone that stands against him gets wiped and then, is going to submit.
It reminds me of that. The devices that were used in Red Sun. Do you remember when we read that, where he would recondition them? So I'm wondering if it has some kind of tie to that, where he would recondition the Kryptonians to where, they were more subservient and not be as insubordinate.
And what we learn is that Lyta was one of the ones that he mind wiped, which is why she's standing with him. Seg actually tries to go to her and convince her that this is wrong and that she's a good person and that she doesn't need to be with him. And along the way, she ends up getting captured by the rebels. And to make a point,
oh man, this had me. This had me.
Well, they're gonna undercut it later on, but this was one of those moments this is one of the high points of the show for me post Lobo, is the rebels decide, or at least one of the rebel leaders decides, they're just going to kill Lyta right in front of Zod, because a point has to be made. And so there's a lot.
They ended that episode where she just slits her throat in front of a camera, and everybody sees it.
And there's this ongoing debate. See, like I said, I think for a very, 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 very small segment of the population that's willing to give the show a chance, there were some interesting philosophical conversations. Not wholly original, mind you, just interesting. The idea of, do you have to become evil to defeat evil, and is that the point? Is this, is it really where you want to go, and and the whole, and if you're not trying to be better than the evil you're defeating, then why are you doing it in the first place? There's a lot of that going on. You have Segel's grandfather, Val-El, who's kind of one point of view, and then this rebel leader who's another, and then you have a third point of view in Zod of, he's the kind of villain you like in these shows, because he's not necessarily inherently evil so much as he knows what the future is. He knows Krypton's gonna blow up.
Yep.
And he has no way of preventing that, so he's preparing for it. And it's like he can't really get into a whole thing with people about like, hey, the whole reason I'm colonizing other planets and trying to get us the hell off of here is because Krypton's, in 200 years is going to go kablooey. So, it's like he seems like a maniac, but he knows on some level that he's doing the right thing. And, it's like he doesn't give a shit about humans. He doesn't give a shit about Martians or Thanagarians or any of the other, various races of the universe. He gives a shit about Krypton. Krypton first. That's how his character was written and developed. So he's a very interesting character. And he's and he has no moral compass, so he's like everything in the service of the mission. Mm-hmm. And the mission is to protect Krypton and Kryptonians at all costs. And he's not interested in your moral quandaries. And like you have the opposite of that in Val-El, which is if the moral compass is the heart of humanity. And if we don't hold on to it, we're going to lose everything. And then we're no better than the animals. And so the show was a lot of that.
The character Jax is, I think, the lieutenant that crosses the line and takes Lyta's life. I think that's her name. I can't remember what happened to her in the first season, but in this season, she's lost an eye. So I think there was something that happened. For the life of me, I can't remember what it was. But it is referenced that, that occurred to her in one of the battles in the first season. But anyway, you got to think about this. This is where, Zod's kind of a maniac. Lyta is his mother. All right? So that was the big cliffhanger for me. It was like, okay, Jax is threatening to kill Lyta if there is any invasion or whatever, and they find out that, sure enough, Zod sent some soldiers down into Wegthor that they found, and because of that, she has a decision she has to make. Does she let Lyta live, or does she live up to the word that she said? Look, if you send anybody down here, I'm killing her. Now, here's the thing. This is where the time travel stuff comes in. Everybody knows that Lyta is Zod's mom. I mean, that's like fucking every Kryptonian knows that. That's apparently old news to everybody, because everybody knows that. So she's, I think, banking on the fact that, okay, if I kill her, then we don't even have to worry about Zod, because Zod will not be born. Zod will not be around. He's not born in this iteration of Krypton. His brother is. And I don't know if we've talked about that yet or not, but Zod is not around. So if Zod is telling the truth, Lyta is his mother. Jax slits his own mother's throat on TV in front of everybody. Now, if you're going to piss somebody off, all right, if you're going to turn a maniac into, you better hope and pray to God that this guy immediately has a Back to the Future effect and starts disappearing in front of you. But that doesn't happen. And when we left that episode where her, Lyta's throat was slit and Zod is kind of like still around, I'm like, what the fuck is going to happen now? So I was all in here, man. I was all in. This is episode, I want to say episode 5 when that happens. And of course that sets off a big chain of events between Val-El and Jax, because now we have dissent amongst the rebels. Who's going to, just like you said, the big quandary. Do you cross that line, or are you with the heart of humanity, Val-El? And now the rebels have a problem inside themselves, although I think a lot of them shortly, back up Val-El. So I liked it, man. I was down for it, and I was like, well, how in the world is Zod still around? Well, we get our answer.
So let's take a quick pause for the cause and talk a little bit about Podcoin, and then when we come back, we'll deal with Lyta's mother and her storyline, where Seg goes after he confronts Lyta and ends up having to deal with Zod. There's a storyline with probably the character I'm most sympathetic. I have the most sympathy for, and that's I can't remember the character's name. I'll look it up in a second. But the character that Seg-El was.
Talking about Nyssa?
Nyssa, yeah. Mm-hmm. They have a child together, and so there's a whole lot there. And then, of course, the origins of Doomsday. So,
oh yes, I can't wait. Let's hear some Podcoin first.
All right. Hey everybody. I really do hope you love the Rattlegion Broadcasting Network. Did you know that you can actually get paid just for listening to this podcast? I know it sounds insane, but it's true. We just discovered this free new app called Podcoin, and it literally pays you to listen to podcasts. Here's how it works. You listen to podcasts, and you earn Podcoin while you listen. Then you turn that Podcoin in for gift cards at places like Amazon or Starbucks, or if you're a good person, you could even donate that Podcoin to charity. The more you listen, the more you earn. Here's what you do. Download the app right now on iPhone or Android, and I have a special code for you. Simply use our code MARKWED5. That's capital MARKWED 5. Capital MARKWED 5. MARKWED 5. And you'll get 300 Podcoin just for signing up. And if you listen to enough of us on there, you can get a cappuccino at Starbucks or an Amazon gift card on us. So go ahead and go listen to this podcast or virtually any podcast on Podcoin and sign up with code MARKWED5. I swear it'll change the way you listen to podcasts. All right, so let me get back to Segel just so I can wrap this up real quick. Segel goes to see Lyta, and we'll find out later, and what he doesn't realize at the time is that that's not the real Lyta. That's a clone. The real Lyta is
fucking clones.
is being she's at the mercy of a Black Mercy, which is a parasitic plant creature that is causing her to have hallucinations of the best life ever.
Oh God.
So she's being kept alive, but like in a catatonic state. And Zod cloned her and then reconditioned the clone to be more accepting of his plan. And that's who Seg runs into, and ultimately that's the one who gets her throat slit. Which causes then a few episodes of Seg and Zod interacting with one another, and there's a lot of fist fighting and whatnot, and it kind of culminates, I believe, with correct me if I'm wrong, the bit with Lyta getting her throat slit, and that bleeds, I think, into him rescuing Nyssa, who had been working for Zod because Zod had taken her baby hostage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They did the old jump out the window. Turns out there's a spaceship waiting for you.
It's a fucking Back to the Future 2 moment if I've ever seen it.
I was going to say, and yet another reference to Back to the Future 2.
Perfect.
And I really, and that we can talk about Nyssa now, because she, she's in the uncomfortable position of having had this kid with Seg, and then almost immediately it gets taken hostage by Zod, and it's used as a bargaining chip for her to work as a double agent against the rebels. And there's a lot of whose side is she really on and all of that, but ultimately she's on her own side. She's also kind of, there's a lot of extended scenes of her with Seg, like to the point where they end up going to the Fortress of Solitude. And clearly she's kind of falling in love with Zeg. They were supposed to be married in the first place before Krypton went all to hell.
Yep.
So there's a lot of that with them. And then when they figure out that Lyta is alive, and they and she rejoins the world of the living, Seg and Lyta get back together again, and this is kind of left out in the cold.
Yeah, she's unfortunately. We have that. They're almost, kind of putting things behind them and potentially have a life ahead of them, since now Seg and Nyssa are kind of back together and they have the kid involved. It seemed like that's the way they were going to go, but then we get the flashback scene of how Lyta is the love of Seg's life.
Yeah.
So then it's just like poor Nyssa. She has nowhere to go. Who does she? she probably felt like there was something left for her to go to with Seg. You know, maybe there was something there. And I thought the way it was being portrayed, I was like, well, these guys may actually stay together here. But, of course, Seg, I think, at that time, I believe Lyta was dead. So, and then when he finds out she's alive, you know, it's just like all bets are off. Sorry, Nissa.
Yeah, I'd have banged you if my actual girlfriend hadn't come back. And then on top of everything, she has no country, no boyfriend. All she has is this baby, and she finally gets the baby back, and Brainiac steals it.
Yeah. By the way, Brainiac's not dead. By the way, Brainiac is still in Seg, and that part where they pull him into the fortress, they go to the fortress, and they're like, okay, we've got to figure out a way to get Brainiac out of Seg. So they think they pull it off. They run a scan. It's not in Nyssa. They run a scan. Brainiac is not in Seg. They run a scan. I think they even run a scan on the baby. No presence of Brainiac. All right, finally, Brainiac's done. Whoops, wait a second. He's in the hologram of Val-El. Oh, shit. And then Brainiac, of course, is back. Takes the baby. Oh, by the way, what's the baby's name, Mark Radulich?
Jor-El, which actually isn't it's actually not his name. His name was something else. And then she's like, "Oh, I don't want it to have my name anymore. We should name it, you know, we should give it your family's name." And so the baby's name changes from whatever the hell, I think it was like Corvex is what it starts as. Corvette or Porsche,
Yeah,
I don't know.
My fantasy car.
I believe his Christian name was Bentley.
It was Ford Explorer, sir. Ford Explorer.
Yeah, so Brainiac steals Trans Am, but it was right after it was after he was renamed Jor-El.
And cue the faint. Yeah, it was just barely in the background.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, Brainiac makes off with the child, and so in the middle of everything else, and they have no idea where the hell Brainiac fucked off to. And she has
hey, I'm taking the kid. You guys keep the city.
Yeah, fair trade. Bye. And Brainiac fucks off.
Wreck, dude. She is a wreck.
Yeah.
I mean, she watches him go with the kid. They can't do anything, and yeah, you said you felt for this poor girl.
Yeah, I would say, like, there was a couple of things in and around these episodes I really liked. I wish they had stayed with it because it was very much Rick Jones in the Supreme Intelligence kind of for me, where, you know, like I wanted more. I wanted more of Seg-El and Brainiac buddy cop.
It was an interesting duo, that's for sure.
You know, like I love the fact that even inside Seg, he suddenly has, you know, this clairvoyance to tell Zeg exactly where to shoot. And so Zeg's just shooting around him as they're escaping Zod's fortress, and he's not even looking.
Yeah, his arm's like going to you know, he puts the gun behind his back, doesn't even look, over to the side, doesn't even look. 1.2 seconds, they're coming around the corner. Yeah, I like that. That was fun. Yeah,
that was a welly. I mean, again, it's kind of like Arrow, where everyone is kung fu fighting. His fist was fast as lightning. He shoots an arrow just to spite you. Sorry.
Like it.
Arrow shoots an arrow. Get it?
I get it.
Green Arrow.
Green Arrow.
So that's kind of my problem with, like, the Green Arrow series, and Krypton kind of falls into that as well, where they don't know how else to do action besides fist fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, this ain't Daredevil or the Punisher.
Let's stop there, though, okay? Because there is one sequence of events, and it's the final sequence, that was probably one of the best fight scenes I had seen in a while on TV, on network TV.
Oh, Lyta and Seg versus Zod?
No, it was the war where the rebels, I think Nyssa is, I think it was Nyssa. Nyssa was leading the rebels, and they were doing a charge against some, I assume, some of the soldiers there. And she was like straight up Mortal Kombat Xing some dudes, okay? Where she was coming out, and then all of a sudden it just went X-ray. If you played Mortal Kombat X, there's the X-ray where it just goes into slow-mo, and then like the knife goes into the dude's neck, and then all of a sudden it speeds back up, and then it's slow-mo again. That was granted, that was the ultimate fight scene that we were getting ready for. It's kind of like they saved up for that. But prior to that, yeah, it was fist fighting. We had Segel versus Zod, and Lyta pops in there.
And I
That
know
was okay.
they couldn't
Missed
have
the fight.
known that was the conclusion to Hobbs and Shaw, but that was the conclusion to Hobbs and Shaw.
Oh, really? They
Yeah.
teamed up and they beat up the bad guy.
Yes. Hobbs and Shaw beat up Black Superman together.
All right. Well, damn, it was pretty accurate.
I'm Black Superman. That's only the second time I've made that reference today.
Today,
Yes.
you need to pick up the pace, sir.
I referenced Black Superman during the Taylor Swift review.
Oh, wow.
Yes, because there's
I'm-
nothing
I'm-
more metal than Taylor Swift, is what I've been
I'm
told.
scared to even think how that came up. So I have to listen to the episode.
You did. It was quite good. Jeremy Lambert was a lovely guest. Anyway, so you're right. Look, Krypton is a mixed bag. So while I was not particularly wazooey about the 2-on-1 fight, and I was, there's cool things like Segel just waltzing out of the fortress, shooting people at will with Brainiac guiding him. That was cool, and I wish there had been more of that before they did away with it. The final charge of the Light Brigade, led by Nyssa, as she's just rolling through Kryptonian soldiers. That was cool, now that you mention it. But there's a lot of kung fu fighting in between. And there's not even a lot of kung fu fighting, though. Like, what there is in action is that. But there's not a lot of it. It's a lot. And I think where I'm going with this in my head is Lyta's the storyline involving Lyta's mother.
Yes.
I wasn't interested in her. I wasn't interested in the male character, who I think was Lyta's betrothed. Before
Yes, it was before Seg. I think before Seg came along, he was definitely interested in her, and then he just thought, well, this is a MILF. I'll move it on up to the east side.
I just didn't care, and every time they were on the screen, I think I was looking at my phone playing, puzzle games.
The end result, or I guess the end game for that, was just so that I assume we could get those two helping Seg get back into Krypton or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of what else. There was another big part of the end game. Oh yeah, I mean I guess we had to show her journey from the badass warrior woman that she was in season 1 to and showing you how she brought her daughter up. She
Right.
brought Lyta up, and then at the end of this arc, she's realized how wrong it was to raise her daughter that way.
Yeah,
And it was a long way to get there. I was just going to say, it's a long way to get there, and there was just, I wanted to say earlier, cut that whole arc out, but it could have been trimmed. How's that? Because I think there are still some essential parts of it. Just like you said, Lyta's betrothed, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but anyway, there's a whole arc where I think he tries to kill himself.
Yep.
And Lyta's mom saves him.
Yeah.
But I wasn't interested. Let's talk about Doomsday. I mean, unless there's something else you want to say.
No,
about that.
but I want to make the point of, this is what I mean by this is the unevenness of the show. And now I'm watching it because I want a podcast about it, and I'm somewhat interested to see where things are going. But it's stuff like that which I can see why it was losing people week to week. I'm going to keep coming back to that because that's kind of the theme of this particular review is, how did Krypton utterly lose its audience? Well, you have fine actors. No one gives like a tremendously bad performance, but you need a showrunner who knows how to balance action and melodrama and storytelling. And this is a little more focused on the melodrama and not enough on everything else. Not to mention, it's the dreariest fucking show I've ever seen.
I'm trying to find her name, but I could just, in my notes, that whole arc is not even mentioned. I was making notes about Lyta, what was going on with Zod, and there was what was going on with Segel and Adam. Their chemistry, by the way, before I forget to mention it, I did at some points, but those two guys, you could tell they were pals.
Yeah.
You know,
I liked.
kind of,
I was going to say, now that you mentioned it, I liked Seg-El and Adam this season more than I liked them last season. They were a little bit too more. They were a little too antagonistic. Whereas this, I felt their friendship bond, and it carried the show in a lot of places for me. And then they broke them up, and they stuck Adam with his fucking drunk buddy from the first season.
Kim.
Like, what? It's an odd pairing.
Yeah. I would say Seg and Adam provided some humor after Lobo left, at least.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kim, you add Kim to the mix. Kim was kind of like the comic relief from the first season, if I remember right. And then now all of a sudden he's a military, I wouldn't say military badass, but he's definitely grown as part of. I think he was part of the Kryptonian soldiers at first, and then he became a part of the rebels. But either way, yeah, stuck him with him, and I mean, there was still. I enjoyed that part of it. I didn't mind Kim as bad as I did in the first season, I think.
So
Because he really wasn't in this second season too much till near the end.
yeah, it's the last couple of episodes where they start using him, and then it's so funny because like he has the noble sacrifice when and it's just like and like this was not one of the. I think that's where the show kind of just misses the ball, where it's like they set certain characters up for these really dramatic moments, but I would tell you that I would say that people watching were not particularly invested in those characters.
No, well, I mean, if this guy just comes back for 2 or 3 episodes near the end, you're like, well, okay, give me a little bit more. What I was hoping for was like Lobo to show up and we have a throwdown between Lobo and Doomsday.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah, that would have definitely brightened up the show. But there were, I would say, the second half of the season, though, there were a couple of episodes where it ends, and I was like, oh, I got to put laundry away, but I want to see what happens next, and I would watch another episode. So they did a good job of leaving you wanting more towards the end. In the beginning, not so much. And there's definitely some stuff in the middle of each episode where it's just like, ugh, this is interminably boring. But then they would build up right towards the end and then just leave you wanting more, so that, hook you to the next episode. Of course, they succeeded with that with me. Clearly, they didn't succeed that with the greater audience.
Yeah.
So Doomsday, I thought this was interesting because I don't remember what Doomsday's origin is in the comic, but here he's a Kryptonian that was essentially mutated and was going to be used as a weapon of war. There's some sort of civil war happening on Krypton. And, it's all that snow. It's what I think it is. Everyone's just fucking mad. Like, because they never see the sun. So, everyone has seasonal depression, but the season never ends. You know what I mean?
And it's funny, the god that they worship is the god of Ra, and he just doesn't show up.
Yeah, he's the sun god. There's no sun. It's just perpetual winter.
No wonder people...
Yeah, exactly. I'm telling you, everyone's got seasonal depression. So they're trying to create. They have this guy who's like volunteering for this program, and they kill him, and they mutate him, and they kill him, and they mutate him, and eventually he becomes Doomsday, who's just this mindless wrecking machine. And Zod's plan is to use the reconditioning device to bring Doomsday under his power. And then basically what he does with him is he sends him up to the moon, to Wegthor, Wegums, or Publix.
Publix. It's a clothing store.
So yeah, they send him up to Barry Windham, and
it's just random words.
And
random words. The planet.
And so he's just rampaging through the tunnels, and the rebels are able to escape by the skin of their teeth, but in doing so, Doomsday wrecks the entire moon. And look, I don't mean to get all Mr. Wizard here, but between the space elevator and the loss of an entire moon, I don't understand how Krypton didn't blow up right then and there.
Yeah, physics. Yeah, that's my episode notes. By the end of episode 9, I put, "Whoops, they blew up Wegthor." That's an oopsie. My bad.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, I don't think you need to be an astrophysicist to know that if we lose the moon, the planet would be, in deep trouble. Yeah.
I have issues. Sure. What do you think of the Doomsday episode? I mean, we get the history of the Doomsday.
I thought it was fine. It made Doomsday slightly more compelling than just basically a large gun.
Yeah, and where, kind of getting us where he came from. I thought that was, like, ruthless. I mean, she's like, okay, we're going to try the first experiment. And, after, like, the second commercial break, they flash back there and she's like, all right, experiment number 435. And every time, like, they do the experiment, the computer will go in, subject is deceased. All right, initiating resurrection protocols. They bring him back to life, and then they kill him again. And they're like they're up to like 500 times that they killed this guy, and each time he begins to mutate and just get stronger and crazier.
Well, I'll tell you, Jesse, having been part of this study at Moffitt, this cancer study, I can tell you that's accurate.
They resurrected you a few times.
Moffitt has killed and resurrected me a number of times, yes. With the same callous attitude.
Oh my goodness.
Give him more chemo. Well, he's almost dead. Give him more chemo.
More I say.
The CAR T may not have worked. We'll just give you more. You can take 2 more months off work, right?
Oh, well, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So
that's my nightmare.
Jada was her name. Finally, I saw it in her notes. Lyda's mom's name was Jada. He almost didn't see it in here.
Her name could be Ham Sandwich, but then it would be more interesting.
People be wondering why. Related, maybe the long lost descendant somehow Kryptonian related to Ham Sandwich Lex Luthor. Yeah, I listen to podcasts specifically on this network. So yeah, I like the Doomsday episode. I thought that was pretty neat, and I did like sending Doomsday down to Wegthor, and like that battle was pretty cool. I understand the whole noble sacrifice. He didn't like that. There wasn't much of a build up, but I mean, he fucking bit it pretty big, didn't he? Like Doomsday standing behind him, and he grabs Kim, and he picks him up, and then rips his fucking head off. I mean, clean off. And then of course Kim lets loose these bombs that ends up blowing up the Wegthor. But anyway, I thought the Doomsday arc was pretty neat. What was okay? Black Mercy was pretty cool. I think that nod to some of the Superman lore was they used that in a fine fashion. There were some brighter spots in this series. Lobo definitely being at the top, and Brainiac taking off with Jor-El. Oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Well, we'll never know, kids. We'll never know.
Nope. Season 3 canceled. The Lobo spinoff canceled. But I read an article today in Variety that HBO Max, which is under Warner Brothers, is on a buying spree.
Ooh, that's good.
So maybe through some iteration or another, we'll get more Swamp Thing and we'll get more Krypton because they need exclusive content.
You saw so the end of the series, the end of the season, I should say, finds Nyssa getting a hold of Adam Strange's Zeta Beam user, whatever the hell it's called. Zeta Beam. She's able to use the Zeta Beam. I don't know what she's planning on doing. She's trying to go back in time, isn't she? That's her plan.
No, she's looking for fucking Brainiac.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought she was going to go try and go back in time to stop Brainiac from.
No, my understanding is that she used the Zeta Beam to try to track down Brainiac.
She seemed awful curious about, he taught you how to travel through time with that? And he's like, yeah, and he proceeds to go on. But either way, the end result is not fucking anywhere near what she expected. She ends up traveling to, is it Ran?
Yes. What they were going to do in Season 3 was the Ran-Thanagar War.
Did you see the Omega sign?
Yes, which I didn't understand what that was. I'm not as familiar with this stuff. But I do know that what she saw in the sky were the Hawk people.
Yeah, definitely the Hawk people. I believe the Omega sign was kind of leaning towards a dark side type of deal. So
yes,
we might have been kind of trying to find a way of wrapping him in here, or at least what the Apocalypse. At least maybe traveling to Apocalypse at some point. where we had there's Apocalypse, and I can't remember I am not a DC guy, so Lord forgive me. But yeah, I know that they had Apocalypse and the New Gods and all that other shit that was going on. So I don't know what their big plans were, but I think that Omega symbol probably had something to do with Darkseid, and then the Rann-Thanagar War, which that's a pretty big staple in DC Comics. Do I know anything about it? No, but I know it existed.
So here's what I'm going to read you.
Read it.
Nyssa manipulates a drugged Atom for his Zeta Beam teleporter in order to find Baby Jor-El beginning on Rann. Rann is a fictional planet in the Polaris star system on DC Comics universe whose capital city is Ranagar. Rann is most famous for being the adopted planet of the Earth explorer and hero Adam Strange, and for their teleportation device, the Zeta Beam. Searching for Sardath, who, it's not a whole lot here, just that he showed up and he was first.
Is he the guy that gave him
the Zeta Beam?
Adam Stream? Okay, got it.
Nyssa soon comes across Burning Dead, finds an Omega, and sees winged invaders. The link says that those were actually parademons.
Oh shit, that is definitely some Apocalypse stuff going on there.
Yeah.
Darkseid. Apocalypse is the place. I'm not referencing the Marvel character, just for everybody out there that started to get their panties in a wad.
So, Jesse, let's just final words here, and then we'll get out of here. What did you think overall of season 2? It sounds like you enjoyed it. It sounds like you were very excited for a third season. Hopefully, like I said, we'll see something on the DC Universe or HBO Max.
Yeah, listen, you told me, hey, we've got to do all of Krypton, and time started running out. And this past weekend, I was like, okay, I've got to go on a binge. And luckily, I had some days off too prior to the weekend, and I binge watched this series. Well, excuse me, this season. It was 10 episodes in 2 days, which is a damn record for me. And at first, I was really, again, I had that hesitation like I had with the first season. I was like, oh, man, this is not going to be fun. And then I was really surprised at some of the stuff that happened. There were, just like Mark said, there were hooks. There were things at the end of the episode that made you go, okay, well, what's going to happen next? What do we have? So the plot was there. The execution may not have been on point, but it was done well enough to where it kept me interested, and it didn't have me going, okay, I've got to do another episode. Ugh, I was not there. It did not take me to that spot at any time during my viewing. So yeah, I'm sad that it got canceled. I'm not going to say that. Here's the thing.
Have you started your petition?
I have not got my petition ready. It isn't something that I'm going to scream, save Krypton, which, sorry, it blew up anyway. Surprise.
Oh, did it? Are you fucking kidding me? Get lives, people.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm glad we got what we got. I am really, really kind of upset that we do not get the Lobo spinoff. That's what really upset me.
Like I said, there's always the possibility that the concept of a Lobo series gets picked up by DC Universe. See, that's the problem. Like, again, SyFy canceled it, right? SyFy canceled the series, but these things can always get picked up somewhere else. I don't, as long as there's a studio willing to produce it. And here's the thing, and I think about like Paul Heyman when he talked about ECW, and he was like, if we had distribution, we'd still be in business, which I don't necessarily believe, but his point's valid. Mm-hmm. And here's the thing, what stops you from having distribution now? There's all these streaming channels that, Warner Brothers has at least 2 streaming channels that'll be available. They'll have HBO Max and currently DC Universe, which you can watch Krypton Season 1 on right now. And so I don't understand the distribution argument anymore. I think, for me, I would have to ask, is there a studio willing to front the cost to produce this thing? Because distribution should, if Warner Brothers Studios is willing to make it and thinks it's worth spending the money on, distribution isn't an issue.
Yeah, that shouldn't be a problem. You just got to find. I imagine the big thing is trying to get the money to support and make it, right?
I would assume so. I think the math that they're probably doing, now that I've said that out loud, is more along the lines of, is the cost of doing this series equal to or greater than the amount of people that are going to pay money for the streaming service?
Yeah, and when you have a series that is based, not Siri, sorry, my phone. When you have a
goddamn Siri,
when you have a series that is based in space, you are probably looking at an extraordinary amount of CGI, an extraordinary amount of other things that are probably that probably wouldn't be there if you were basing your show out of the swamp. You know, there's
which got canceled.
Yeah, which got canceled. So if you're going to look at budgetary reasons, and they canceled Swamp Thing and they're not going to, most likely they're not going to pick up Krypton because there's or they're going to have to do what the reason why it was so dull and drab and is probably because SyFy didn't have the budget to make everything look lavish and look extraordinarily technological.
Well, I think SyFy was just a distributing channel. I don't think they made the show. Again, the production companies were Phantom 4 Films, that's David Goyer, DC Entertainment, Warner Horizon Television. So they're the people that are responsible for the CW shows.
Okay, all right.
And that's another thing. You can get this stuff. You have a relationship with CW if you don't outright own it. I haven't looked that closely at this. So this is one of those in the weeds things where I wish I understood it a little bit better or had more details as to when something like this gets canceled on one channel, why are they running up against, if they want, in other words, there's only one logical argument for canceling something and leaving it canceled and not finding an alternate distribution channel, and that is it's too expensive and not enough people watched it. Mm-hmm. So if it was cheap, but not enough people watched it, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But if it's too expensive and not enough people are watching it, then it's just throwing money down the drain.
Yeah. Then you're like, okay, get this one done. We're not putting any more money into it.
I think they tried. I guarantee you, Pennyworth isn't nearly as expensive to shoot.
Fucking Pennyworth.
Oh
yeah. Oh, it's old time London. Oh. All right.
Hey, take it easy.
You would probably do better having your wife watch this, since she's the Anglophile or whatever the hell it's called.
Anglio,
sure, whatever it is. So, real quick before I forget, because I wanted to make a point to say this, and I forgot all about it when we were talking about Lobo. Do you remember what Lobo kept calling Seg-El?
Siegel.
Right. Do you know that Superman was created by writer Jerry Siegel?
That is correct.
And I think one of my Lobo's such an asshole. He kept, Seg-El's like, we got to get back to Krypton, and what's that crap town?
It was so juvenile, but I was laughing despite myself, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna let myself enjoy this.
Oh, yeah.
You're dumb.
That's a funny joke. All right. I'm ready to get out of here, man. I don't have anything else to say.
All right. So if you heard us talking about this earlier, we had a special Metal Hammer of Doom earlier today, which is in the archives currently. Jeremy Lambert, a fan-cited in 401mania.com. You can check him out at Jeremy Lambert88 on Twitter. He also podcasts with Larry Zonka on wrestling on the 401mania.com. The 401 on Wrestling podcast is what they call it. So he's a huge Taylor Swift fan, and he went on Twitter, and he was like, someone invite me on their wrestling show just so I can talk about Taylor Swift. And I'm like, how about we just don't talk about wrestling?
Yeah, we can cut out that part and maybe talk about the band.
Why are we gimmicking this up? We can just talk about Taylor Swift. It's fine. And he took me up on it. So we did an impromptu Metal Hammer of Doom Taylor Swift lover. Oh, Jesse. I can't wait till I have you on the Metal Hammer of Doom again, and I can sing you her song about how she's in love with a London boy. Darling, I fancy you.
Jeez.
I fancy you, Jesse Starcher. I fancy you.
Spectacular. Boy, I cannot wait. Maybe my toilet will break and I'll have to call off. Sorry, Mark. Can't do it.
We'll do it. I'll come to your house. We'll do it in your bathroom. So I can tell you in person that I fancy you.
Oh, jeez.
Let your wife know that I fancy you, okay?
Yeah. First thing. As soon as I get upstairs. How do you feel on a little Randy night? Oh, well, guess what? Mark fancies me. I'll have flashbacks to Glow Season 2.
Speaking of Glow Season 2 over on the... So anyway, we did a special Metal Hammer of Doom where we reviewed the whole Lover album by Taylor Swift. It was a fun time. Jeremy's a good dude. I used to love his podcast with Sam Riccati, but apparently Sam Riccati got a big boy job and and doesn't live on this side of the earth. So getting together with... so it's kind of hard to schedule with him. I get it. We did a Superman Lobo comic, DC First, over on Source Material. We have a special Patreon exclusive show. Nobody's checked it out yet, which means you're all missing out on the fun. We talked D23. We actually talked about the whole Sony Spider-Man deal with Marvel also. So go spend $1 and go listen to the podcast, you cheap bastards.
That's 1 month. 1 month, $1.
Yeah.
I mean, damn. Shit.
Goddamn, pal. Tomorrow, there's just going to be an avalanche of shows. Because it's a Superblog team-up, y'all.
That's right.
We got the Source Material Superblog team-up show, which is Vampirella. Whoa, Vampirella. Roses for the Dead. And the Rattledge and Broadcasting Network contribution to the Superblog team-up dealing with the subject of Immortal. We watched Jupiter Ascending. Myself, Jesse, and from our Canadian office, David Wright. And a fun... Yes?
I was going to say, we have an ever-expanding Canadian office. It's great.
Yes. Tomorrow on the actual Metal Hammer of Doom, oh, Jesse, you'll be my Candyman. Rage of Light Imploder. Rage of Light is the band. They're a trance metal band, if you can believe there's such a thing. And their newest album is called Imploder. Came out way earlier this year. And we're going to review it because they did a cover of an Aqua song called Candyman. It was the greatest thing I'd ever seen, and I made Jesse watch it.
For a second there, I thought you said trans metal band, and I was like,
"Woo!"
Wait, no, he said trance.
Trance.
Either way, I'd still listen to him, but I think you meant trance. At least the music I heard today resembled trance. So.
There's no such thing as trans music. There is trance, though. Oh, you're my Candyman. Thursday, we've got a couple of shows coming at you. Robert, Alexis, and Jason Teasley, the prodigal son, will be reviewing Ready or Not, Here I Come.
You can't hide.
But yes, Alexis Haina and I will be reviewing the Banana Splits horror movie that's currently on Blu-ray and digital. So that'll be fun. And then myself and Jason Teasley, and possibly the other two folks I mentioned just now, will be doing a TV Party Tonight review for Zombie Tidal Wave. Yeah. Zombie Tidal Wave.
Ian Ziering, coming right at you, buddy.
This is what happens when you say yes to everything. And speaking of people saying yes to everything, Robert Winfrey will be joining me on commentary at O-Dark early in the morning as we do live commentary for UFC Fight Night in China, Chinese Chinaman, Andrade versus Zhang. Zing-a-ding-dang-a-dang-dong-ding-dong. Ding-a-ding-dang-a-dong. You want to dang-a-dong my dag-a-long-ling-long there, Jesse?
You already told me you fancy me. Can we just leave it at that? I don't want to dang-a-lang-a-ding-dong at all. Not right now.
September kicks off Onslaught Month, all month long here on the Rattledge and Broadcasting Network. We start with Onslaught Volume 1 on September 2nd. September 3rd, we've got a TV party for Hannibal Season 3, and then at night, myself, Chris Bailey, and Patrick Mullen will be doing a TV party for New Japan Pro Wrestling Royal Quest, NXT UK Cardiff, and AEW All Out.
Zip.
If
you ain't gonna make the joke, I will.
September 4th, It's either going to be a really good day or a really bad day. I don't know how it's going to go because I got PET scans and CT scans and Knotfest. So we'll see. In the meantime, while I'm listening to Slipknot and Volbeat and Behemoth and Gojira, you'll be listening to X-Men Legacy Volume 2 Invasive Exotics. And we're looking at that book because we'll be finishing up Legion Season 3 on September 5th. There's nothing September 6th at the moment, but wait 5 minutes. I'm sure somebody will ask me to review something stupid. And then on September 7th, myself and Robert Winfrey, I'm going to kick my wife out of the house. I'm going to tell her, get out, get thee to a nunnery, get, scat, cat. I'm going to make her go on a date with my cousin Kimberly. She's a girl, y'all. And while she's out, the mice shall play. Myself and Robert Winfrey will do alternate commentary for UFC 242, Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Dustin Poirier for the lightweight title.
All right. Anything else?
There's a whole shitload of stuff in the month of September, but here's what I'm learning. I shouldn't advertise too far ahead because shit gets canceled left and right. Because people are not dependable.
All right. Well, hey, ladies and gentlemen, go give the Radulich in Broadcasting Network Facebook page a like to stay up on top of all the great podcasts we have to offer. Make sure to check out Podcoin. Mark Radulich also mentioned the Patreon. Like I said, you can customize what you'd like to give us, for entertaining you, extra special content that you can't get anywhere else from the Radulich and Broadcasting Network. You could just put $1 in there as your custom monthly amount. And Mark talked about Podcoin. You could earn money to listen to podcasts. We figured it out there last night. You can offset your cost. Why are you not doing that? It's free, basically, after that. You get yourself a little Starbucks gift card or however this stuff works there with the Podcoin. Offset that with the $1 or whatever you put in there.
Let me say this. If you have a podcast and you happen to have checked out ours, you somehow stumbled into this backwards into the bear trap that is the Radulich and Broadcasting Network.
How the hell did I get here?
If you've walked into our personal phantom zone and you've got your own podcast, check to make sure you're on Listen Notes, because if you're on Listen Notes, then guess what? You're on Podcoin, motherfucker.
There you go.
Go claim your podcast. If you claim your podcast on Podcoin, you get to be the hot podcast for 2 weeks, which means new listeners. Because for every hot podcast, you get extra Podcoin per listen. It's helped people are always talking in these groups on Facebook about how to market their podcast, how to get new listeners. A lot of disheartened people. Everyone thinks they're going to be fucking Joe Rogan in like 2 shows.
Not going to happen.
No. I've been doing this for
I've been at this for 5 years.
I've been at this for 10 years. Guess what? Unless Joe Rogan comes on my show, and maybe not even then, it takes a lot of patience. But Podcoin's a great way to promote your podcast and get new listeners. We've had new listeners. Our numbers have gone up since we've been on Podcoin. It's free. Go claim your podcast, and they'll automatically make you the hot podcast for 2 weeks. You get bonus points for listening to your own stuff or anyone else that listens to it. And then you can listen to us because we're giving you all this free advice. I'm not charging for this advice. This is free. I am going to charge you for the Patreon shows, though. Go to Patreon. Give us $1. Hear our thoughts on D23. And then get paid to listen to podcasts.
Unreal.
Only in America.
That's right. Someone get Don King down here. So, Mark, I think I don't really have much else to say. I think we've said it all. I mean, check out the Superblog team up. Everything's dropping tomorrow. But yeah, we got 2 podcasts coming up.
And my pants.
Mark's pants are dropping. It's insane. There are going to be a lot of podcasts and blogs participating in the Superblog team up. So you may see a few things pop up there, but I'm telling you, if you're a big comic book fan, there are going to be some people that are broaching all sorts of topics about or all sorts of books, just anything they could think of that ties in with the word immortal.
Where can they find the Superblog team up? Like, what's the central location?
Probably just go to Twitter and type in Superblog team up, hashtag Superblog team up, or hashtag SBTU, and you're going to find a lot of tweets that are going to be made there tomorrow, probably linking to everybody's stuff that's out there. It's not all being in one central spot. I know that if you probably go to one of the podcasts or blogs, they will have the rest of the links sitting there. So a lot of stuff out there. Our buddies over at the Unspoken Decade, I see that it looks like old Dean Compton's writing something on Archer and Armstrong. Opposites attract. That looks interesting. You can all check that out there tomorrow. So anyway, our good buddy Chris Bailey, he's put in some work on this, and he's given us a banner. Mark, did you? No, you haven't seen it.
I've seen the banner.
That you've seen the banner for ours? He makes one for everybody's podcast, pretty much.
I've seen the one for Jupiter Ascending.
Oh, okay, all right. I haven't seen that one. Then have you seen the one for source material, which happens to be a Dracula leaning over some poor woman? I don't know if you saw that or not, but either way, Chris Bailey's a good guy, so check it out. Anyway, I'm ready. Let's get out of here, Mark. It's 10:36. I'm done.
I'm done talking now.
I'm done talking now.
All right, folks. Thank you for joining us in our review of Krypton Season 2. For Jesse Starcher of the Source Material Podcast, be well, be safe, and behave.
Dunkin' has a whole new line of handcrafted signature lattes. Blueberry Crisp, Caramel Craze, and Cocoa Mocha. They're so delicious, you'll realize that you've been spending a whole latte time drinking the wrong coffee. So even though you've been together for years, it's time to say goodbye to your ex, Coffee Place. Because you've got a latte love for Dunkin's signature lattes. Sipping is believing with Dunkin's new handcrafted signature lattes, like Blueberry Crisp, Caramel Craze, or Cocoa Mocha. America runs on Dunkin'. Price and participation may vary. Limited time offer.
With Dunkin' Go-Tos, you can get a great deal on two of your favorites, like 2 egg and cheese wraps for $2, 2 bagels with cream cheese spread for $4, and 2 bacon, egg, and cheese croissants for $5. In my opinion, it's a deal that's pretty tough to beat. That's just if you want my go-to cents. If you don't want my go-to cents, it's go too late. Dunkin' Go-Tos, a great deal for $2, $4, or $5. America runs on Dunkin'. Participation may vary. Limited time offer. Exclusions apply.